Hey, what is up, our blended family community, our B fam out there? I'm super excited for this episode today because we have another special guest. I have Jen here that's going to be sharing her story with you. I specifically picked her because of her story and the experience that she has, because she has been on a journey in her blended family of going through some of the similar experiences that we did in our family, where our kids wanted to go live with their other parents, and where I fought it tooth and nail and maybe, made some choices in there that made life a little bit more difficult for all of us. Jen has her own story of her healing and her processing of her kids wanting to go and share time, live more at their dad's house. And when I read her blog about it, I was like, wow, we need more conversations around this, because as a mom, we can take it so personal. We can feel like we are not good enough when our children want to be actively present in both of their parents' lives. And so I'm going to bring her on in just a second, and I'm going to have her kind of share with us the journey that she went, the kind of the process that she went through, the healing in the midst of that, and then maybe some steps for us to take to be able to have that same kind of clarity for ourselves moving forward. Whether if you are in a situation where you are just in the fear of this happening in your family, or maybe your kids are getting of age, they're starting to make certain requests, or maybe you're in the middle of it right now and your kids have already left and gone to live with their other parents. So stick with me, because we're going to talk to Jen right after this.
When we first became a step family, just like you, we didn't quite know what we were getting into.
Scarlett and Randall Tandy here from Enjoying Your Blended Family, and we have been a blended family for over 15 years. And not only did we have to figure out how to handle the day-to-day struggles that come with being in a step family, about 7 years in, our biggest fear happened, and each of our kids went to go live with their other parent.
We went through seasons of zero connection with each one of our kids, and we had to get really creative on ways to reestablish and reconnect those relationships.
And through prayer and becoming very intentional, God restored our family in true God-like fashion and made it better than we could have ever imagined or hoped for.
So God has called us to help other families do the same thing, to make those connections. So if you're looking for stronger relationships, deeper connections, and more communication, then we believe it truly starts with being intentional and creating these fun opportunities in our family.
Click the link so that you can get quick access to the process that we use to help you find common interests in your family, so that you can be more intentional on spending time with your kids, your spouse, and your family as a whole.
We believe you can take the step out of step family and create a blended family that you truly enjoy.
You can find our podcast on Enjoying Your Blended Family on YouTube or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And while you're sitting there, go ahead and follow us on social media.
So when you have more fun, you'll see less problems.
All right, we are back, and I have Jen Debrot here, and she's one of those women. I mean, I feel like, and I'm just following you on social media, Jen, that you're doing all of the things and you're doing it really well. I know that social media sometimes can be a little deceiving on that, but you have your hand in so many different things, and y'all living on a farm. Is that right?
Hobby farm.
A hobby farm, because I'm just now starting a garden here. So I just now put some little vegetables and started planting the little seeds. I haven't even watered them since I put them in the dirt like 2 days ago. I'm really bad about it, but I want to be able to do that so bad. But then you also have a passion for the kingdom and what God is doing, and this project that y'all have, the 1 million project to reach. Is that to reach 1 million people for Jesus, right?
Yes. Yep.
So, so many amazing things that she's doing. But before we get into the different stories and things that's going on in her life, can you just tell us a little bit about your blended family dynamics? What does it look like now? What makes up y'all's blended family? Where are y'all from? What's the custody look like, and all that stuff?
Yeah. Oh man. Well, it's a joy to be here, and I'm super excited to be having a conversation with you in real life. I follow along, on your site and kind of stumbled upon you, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago. So it's pretty cool to be able to be having this conversation. I am married to my husband, Travis. We've been married about 5.5 years, and he has 2 daughters, and I have 5 sons. But my backstory to that is that I have 5 sons from 2 different marriages prior to my marriage that I'm in now. So I have an older set of sons that are adults and married and on their own. And then I have 2 sons that are still in our house here, and they are the same ages as my bonus daughters. So we have 2 8th graders and 2 5th graders still at home, and 6 adult children now with the in-laws, the daughter-in-laws that are out of the house and living nearby. So that's the makeup of our blended family, which it's big.
Yes,
But
definitely a big blended family right there. And it is interesting when your kids get older and get married and your daughter-in-laws, son-in-laws, they become a part of the family too. And it really, you already feel like you have a big family, and then they all start to reproduce, be fruitful and multiply, as they say. And the family gets that much bigger. So do y'all have a kid together?
no,
Right?
no
No, so
children.
y'all are like us. Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And y'all are from Michigan, you said.
Yep.
And so
Yeah,
you're
we live in Michigan. Yeah. And on a hobby farm, we have some chickens and ducks, and we have sheep, and we're opening up a farm stand this summer at the end of our road. And we're just really excited about that kind of project together as a family. And yeah, like you said, we have a ministry that we founded about 6 years ago. And we work for that, or I work for that. My husband owns a couple of companies.
okay, nice. And what do
Yeah.
you consider a hobby farm? Like, just because you're doing it for fun, you're not making any money, or because you're new at it and so you don't call yourself a farmer yet?
Right. Yeah, we're new at it. My husband grew up in an area where there was property, but not really a farm. But his father grew up on a farm, so they would go visit the family farm when he was a child. So he was used to having privacy and quiet and calm, and had a small little tractor when we met, but was living in a really crowded neighborhood. And my previous life, we had acreage and chickens, but very just for fun to get some eggs, and that was about it. And when we started dating, we both expressed our desire to have that same setting again. And when we bought our home, it had no animals, it had none of the farm feel. It was just a house in the woods. But you start dreaming for things, and now the dream is to have more land and to have maybe a full-on farm someday. So it didn't start there, but yeah, we have animals, we have a garden, we have some fruit trees. We figured out what our land can produce, and we came up with this idea of starting a farm stand next summer, which, yeah. And, I'm into all the sourdough, baking bread, just whatever, but it's fun, but it's a hobby. It's not making us any money. It's costing us money at this point.
I completely understand those hobbies. And I also just tried my hand at sourdough and was very unsuccessful at it. My foster daughter, she was able to produce bread from it. Mine turned into a moldy mess because our temperature in the house just isn't right for it. And that apparently is very important. And my friend's like, you just need to get like a little heater to keep by it. And I'm like, that's too much. I'm going to try again when it's not 50 degrees outside, when it's normal temperatures. And my house is actually the perfect temperature for it, instead of me having to try to make it the perfect temperature. So I just want somebody to have some social media that tells me exactly what to do, when to do it, even with the farming and the planting and trying to grow my own vegetables. Like, I need you to tell me, plant this, water this, stick this here, add it with this. And I haven't found the right page for myself yet, but I know one has to exist, because
start small.
Yeah. So not like 6 different vegetables like I just did.
I mean, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe 1 or 2 will survive out of that. Okay, so let's get into and dive into your story. So, and like you shared, I only got to read a briefing like of it, like, you know, your marriages, and each one of those took you through a different bit of a journey. And I've shared on my stuff before, actually one of a really popular reel that we had that just kind of took off in Instagram was my biggest fear. And my biggest fear, I remember, which is crazy that this would be a thought as an 18-year-old girl. I got pregnant in high school. I'm having the ultrasound, and they, you know, doing the little thing, putting the stuff on my stomach. They say it's a boy, and a tear just rolling down my face, thinking he's gonna want to leave me one day and go live with his dad. Like, even at that point, because we weren't married yet, we were, you know, still in high school when I got pregnant. And I just remember thinking, like, he's not gonna, if it's a boy, he's gonna want to leave me. In my head, if it was a girl, she would want to stay with me because I'm her mother, even though I've come to realize that girls are a lot more daddy girls, you know, and boys with their mom and stuff. But at my immature self, I just remember that fear from the beginning. And then as we ended up marrying and creating a life, we were, you know, about 5-6 years in before my first marriage came to an end. And then parenting from then on with that, I've got to be the better parent. I've got to do everything right and prove that, so that my kids won't want to leave me and go live with their dad. And in my head, it was just, you either had your kids and you were a good mom, or you didn't have your kids and you were a bad mom. And that's how I judged other people as well, because I was judging myself that way. And it's just not the truth. Kids should have both parents in their life, both parents hopefully willing and able to care for their kids if it's safe and all of that good stuff. And so to hear your perspective on that was eye-opening as well. So I'd love for you just kind of start from whatever you would consider your beginning on that, and just take us through that journey and what that looked like with your kids.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, again, I love when I listen to you, how transparent and real you are with your audience, and you're so brave, and you're always like calling yourself out for, you know, things you did wrong or are doing wrong. And you're on this journey of being really wanting to do whatever you can to serve the Lord and to do it right. And so I love that. And so I can relate to you in so many ways. I've done so much wrong in my parenting journey, in my marriage journey, just as a daughter of God. You know, I've done a lot wrong, but I have understood some of my mistakes along the way. I grew up in a Christian home, and so my parents modeled family really well for us. And my parents are still married. They'll be celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary this summer.
Wow,
And
congratulations. That is huge.
yeah, it is. And I think that foundation maybe has also shaped how I have done the co-parenting thing. My dad is a pastor, he still is, and my mom was just a really amazing mother, still is, and grandmother. You know, I call her Saint Judy. She's amazing. And so when I got pregnant out of wedlock when I was 18, my parents were also very loving and graceful with that news and information, and walked with me through that. And my first husband was also raised in a Christian home. His parents were in ministry as well. And we were just two children that were kind of rebelling, and both came from a little bit of a legalistic background, in kind of the Baptist, very conservative upbringing as well. So when we found out we were pregnant, you know, naturally it was kind of like, well, maybe you guys should get married. Nobody really considered that we were only 18 and really not ready, and we weren't living for the Lord by any means, but it is what it is, and it's our story and our journey. And we did marry, and we were married for about 11 years, and it was a very challenging marriage over that course. And we had the 3 boys, and yeah, it was just multiple times we were separated, and it was not healthy at all. It was very toxic. I was kind of going one way, and he was going a different way with our walk with the Lord. And when we divorced, I was 29 and became a single parent, and was trying to figure out how to work and have 3 boys and be a single parent and serve the Lord. And within a few months, I started dating, thought I was ready to date. I really did not work through any of my mess of a divorce or childhood wounds, any of that. Instead, I was just so busy trying to move forward and take care of my kids. And then, now I've got this guy interested in me, which seemed like it'd be amazing. I'm going to share part of my story that I've never shared on this type of a setting publicly yet, but I am working on sharing it more. While we were dating, within a few months of us dating, I actually found out I was pregnant again. So I was 30 years old and was mortified that I was pregnant again. And he was a good Christian man and had never been married before, no children of his own. So I felt like I really landed a really great guy. And the two of us decided that we would terminate the pregnancy and nobody would know. And that we would, just kind of hide it from people. And that decision really affected what became of our relationship. We moved forward in our relationship and didn't reveal any of that information to anybody. And we married a few months later. And of course, it was going to affect our marriage. And while we were married, we did reveal it to a counselor and we tried to work on that part of our story, but it was just almost too large to get over. And, we were in ministry. We actually were on a planting team for a church. He was a worship pastor. I was starting to work on writing books and working in the women's ministry, but nobody really knew about that part of our story. They just knew I had been a single mom prior to marrying him. So, we couldn't hold it in and we couldn't hide from it and run from it long enough, fast enough or forever. And eventually God just allowed for it to come out and become something we needed to deal with. Not that it got exposed publicly, but it inwardly began to rot in both of us. And it caused some, self-destructive tendencies, probably in he and I both. And eventually he was no longer in ministry. And I, he left and decided he didn't want to be married. There were things going on in his life that made him want to choose that. And at that point, I became a single mom of 5 sons at almost 40 years old. And I was not in a position financially to be able to stay afloat on my own. So I moved in with my parents and, God began to heal my heart. And for about 2 years, I went to therapy, just crying my eyes out, found a really good counselor and started working through things from my past. But to add the piece of co-parenting and sharing time with my children and their fathers, the journey looked like my first husband and I, when we divorced, I had primary custody of my young sons. And like I shared, I was remarried. But the boys were starting to get a little older. They were around, my oldest was about 11, 12 when he and his younger twin brothers, I have an older son and then twin boys, 3 years younger. They began to express that they wanted to spend more time with dad. And initially, of course, I wanted to blame their dad and think, well, it's because he's not spending quality time with them when they're there. And, this really can't be their idea. It must all be him. And I wanted to believe that, this was not really what they wanted, but I couldn't deny it because they would bring it to me. And eventually we decided to meet up and have dinner together with the boys, their dad, his girlfriend, and myself. And actually at the time, my new husband didn't come with me. And when we met, we let the boys speak in front of us. And, it gave the boys an opportunity to be honest and to say what they really wanted. And they were able to stand up to me, and I know it was hard for them and communicate to me that it was true. They did want to spend more time with dad and ideally week on, week off. And as hard as it was to hear, I think I had begun that forgiving, their dad and the forgiveness journey that was required for me to heal and move on with my life and my new marriage. So God was preparing me. And I said, if that's what you want, then that's what we'll do, and, I came home to my new husband and said, this is what we're going to do. This is what they said. This is how it's going to go. And I don't quite remember if he was on board with it or not. Probably, I don't want to relive that part, but I would say it was very challenging because they started that, I think it was like that summer, they started doing week on, week off, and continued to until they graduated. But it was the beginning of healing for me and freedom and really letting go and trusting the Lord with my kids. And their dad and I did not parent at all the same. Our lifestyles were completely different. When we divorced, I continued to walk with the Lord and continue that journey, and he never really returned and hasn't still today. And yet, I mean, God is so faithful. And if you met my boys, if you met them, you would be in awe of what God has done and the love that they have for the Lord, and the wives that they've chosen, and just the path that God has for them, and the way that they've been able to honor both parents and love both parents, and still today love their dad in the struggles he has as an adult parent, and just one that's not necessarily walking with the Lord. And so, and I have such compassion for him. Like, I really do. His mother passed away a few years ago. My husband and I were able to go and be there for him and support him in that. And, we message each other and tell each other happy birthday, happy Father's Day, Mother's Day, Merry Christmas. I don't dishonor him. I don't dislike him. He's a good man, and he's my children's father. So that's the journey I've been on with him. So fast forward, when my second husband was leaving and chose, to walk in towards divorce, it was like a knife to my heart, because I knew what this was going to mean. Whether it was week on, week off, it meant I was not going to be a permanent parent to my child growing up. I was no longer going to be able to have them with me all the time. And it was like, I already know what this feels like. I cannot do this. And I knew what it was going to do to the boys. And it was just like torturous. It was terrible. And right away, he began to say, and my younger boys were like 6 and 3, and he began to say, I want week on, week off, like we do with the older boys. And I was like, oh no, initially it was like, that's not going to happen. There's no way, they are too young. I didn't do that till they were older, so at the front of it, I was not, I did it very, not willing. I was not willing to share equal time. But when it came down to the finalizing of our divorce, I did agree to let it become a week on, week off when our youngest son started full-time school. And so it was a couple years before that happened, while we were still working through our divorce and stuff. But once that day came, it was time, and they were ready. And yes, they were young, but it still has been one of the best things I could have ever done for my kids. And they have a really good relationship with their dad, and he loves them, and he's a really good dad. And I love them too. And I'm a really good mom, and we honor each other. And I think the Lord, like, he's remarried and he's in a healthy state, and I'm remarried and I'm in a healthy state. We live 5 minutes from each other, and we include all 4 co-parents, and we cheer each other on. We are like that, not it's not like picture perfect and amazing and roses all the time, but like truly, like, I'm grateful for their helping in our journey with our kids. And I can have really great conversations with their stepmom, And it's a good thing. And I see what it's doing for our kids. Like our kid, like the boys, like they have it really good when you go through a divorce as a child. I mean, it's not fun. I can imagine. I didn't have that experience, but like for the boys, I feel like this is good what's happening here. And their dad and his wife, they go to church. So, I mean, we're just really still similar on our wishes for the kids as we were when they were born. So, there's more to share, but I'll stop there for that part of our journey.
Wow. Well, first I want to go back for you opening up about something that is such a private topic. And I'm going to try not to cry, but I just know that more people need to be honest about that, especially in the church, because when you keep that in and the shame that it brings, and it does destroy lives, and I believe the enemy wants you to stay in that shame, and then him continue to be able to just feed you lies and feed you stuff that keeps you from being able to move on and move forward in there. And I know for our family personally, this has been something that has been experienced, and it's not quite all my story to tell, so I don't share all of it. I do think there will be a time, probably in the near future, but it's had such an impact. But we've seen Jesus come through in such a mighty healing way that I cannot even express just the joy that I feel when someone is set free from that bondage and shame that they are carrying. So thank you for opening up and speaking on that, because I know it's not easy. And time does allow, and it's not those kind of things that you need to share with everybody, but when God is going to use that to intersect in somebody else's life to be able to give them some peace and some hope for their future. So thank you. I just want to say thank you for that. And then just along the lines of your co-parenting journey, when it comes with the boys, would you say that both relationships, like, you felt safe, I guess, like as far as when they left your home, you didn't ever feel like they were going to an unsafe situation?
No, I wouldn't say that that's true. I would say there's been times, in our mental health journey, that when we're not walking with the Lord, we do things that are in darkness. So no, there's been times where there's been concern for sure. And yeah, but I've trusted the Lord.
Yeah.
I've been able to trust the Lord.
Yeah, that's the hard thing, because sometimes I'll start to beat myself up about like, oh, I should have been better at this or that. But then I'll relive or go back and look at I had a lot of valid reasons why I did the things that I did, or why I allowed time and didn't allow time. Like, it wasn't just me being a selfish woman and, these are my kids and I want to keep them all to myself. There were reasons. And sometimes it's, when your kids are a certain age, they don't need to know all of those things. And so trying to guard them and shield them from that, and, just let them be kids at the same time. So I do understand that. You don't want to just openly talk about everything because it's someone else's life and their story as well. But I was just curious, as far as when you had them and when you were letting them go, I wanted to acknowledge that there is a difference in someone who is in a healthy mental state and making wise choices, and you're sending your kids off and 100% that they're going to be okay. You just miss them and you're sad because they're your children and you want to spend time with them, versus when you have this fear and this worry that kind of just like builds up inside. And I agree, Jen, I had to do the same thing. I had to trust that God is going to take care of them. Psalms 91, I just prayed that over and over and put my kids' names in there specifically. Lord, you said you're going to protect them when they're home and when they're gone, when they're asleep, when they're awake, and their comings and goings. I trust that you are going to, and it really builds up that faith. But then on the other side of that, in any other relationships, y'all aren't doing ministry together, right? Or doing all of these besides, you're having like cordial conversations and stuff, but y'all aren't celebrating holidays and all of that as like one big happy blended family, are you?
No, no. I mean, well, we had my son's birthday party here at our house. We did a surprise party for him and invited the soccer team. And yeah, I mean, they asked if we could host it, and we did. And all the friends and family came. And I'm sure it's odd for the parents. I mean, it's not. They always say it's so nice that you guys can get along. So, and it's genuine. We really do get along. And that's where we are today. There's been it's been 7-8 years since the divorce. So there's been time for God to do the work that he's done in both of our hearts. But I do have the other spin, and I haven't shared this side of our story publicly, and it's not only my story to share either. So there's always that concern. But my husband has daughters that are not with us equal time, and that part is very hard. And so I've never had the opportunity to see it from this lens, because in my first my second marriage, here we go with my story, right? My second marriage, my husband did not have children or an ex-wife. So I never had that component. He had to deal with my children and my ex-husband, but I did not have to deal with that new component. And so in this marriage, I now have, daughters, bonus daughters, and another parent that we're engaging with on our time and our schedule. And also, the fact that he was previously married. And so that part has caused me to really reflect on how I co-parent with my little boy's dad now. And man, has it just done a number on my heart with helping me to see how I really mess things up sometimes in my need to be in control, in my assuming of, in my, I don't know, just judgmental, critical, whatever, unappreciative. I mean, the older boy's dad was always one to help financially. I mean, to the best of his ability. He always had them when it was his parenting time. He didn't have his life in order all the time. So it's just now I'm like, gosh, I don't ever want to ever be mean to the boy's new stepmom. I appreciate all she's doing to be a mom in that house. I mean, wow, I know how it is to be a stepmom. And also just the unappreciative kind of attitude towards like any help that they give, like we're doing all the work over here. Like that's not true. So yeah, our journey is really hard for my husband right now, to watch how well it's going for me and our boy's dad and stepmom, and it's not the same for him, and he's not appreciated, and we don't have equal time, and the girls live 30 minutes from here, and we've begged, and the girls have asked for more time, and it's a constant, feeling less than, beneath, not good enough, and we're really good parents. So, you feel like you got to defend yourself, and it's like, so I 100% like now when we are at events, soccer teams, soccer games, whatever, we're always looking for that dad that's off to the side that feels like that he's got the ex-wife that's wow, got it all together, I'm amazing, wanting the world to think they're amazing. And it's it comes from the wrong place. So yeah, so there's that.
Yeah, definitely be praying for her. And that's where I had to get to a place where it's like, I wanted them to fail, my ex-husband and Randall's ex-wife, because then that proved my point, right? But to get to a place, and that's sad to say as a Christian, but to get to a place where it's like, I want what is best for them. Like I think is how like, okay, do you forgive? Like when you are able to say, okay, I want to pray for their well-being, because their health is going to reflect the health of my children as well, and the relationship that they have, and for them to be able to have both of those parents. And it's a pride issue. And I don't know that I ever would have learned that I had a pride issue until the kids left. Like, I think the Lord, when we ask for him to break things off that are not of him and to teach us and show us, we want it to look a certain way, but then these life lessons come in some heart-wrenching ways sometimes. And so when my kids left and I had to experience what my ex-husband and Randall's ex-wife was experiencing on a regular basis, it did soften my heart towards them. Like, oh, that's what it feels like. So you're able to see that now, right? You're able to see through your husband's lens what your ex-husbands would have experienced. And I'm just amazed that you were able to sit down at that first dinner, you know, or lunch, wherever, when y'all met, to let the boys tell you what they wanted, and to be able to sit there and reflect on that and give them that voice is just incredible. And I'm curious, did it ever come to a point, because you were able to hear them out and honor those wishes, unlike what I did, which was, I was like, oh heck no, like tighten ship over here. Were y'all able to move forward in that, and y'all's relationship stay intact that whole time? Or because they were having such equal influence, did there come a time when they were desiring not to live with you every other week, or y'all's relationships just became strained because they're teenagers and all of that stuff?
No, they stayed week on, week off throughout. And they wanted to honor both parents. And now once they, my oldest son right away went off to college. The twins, their dad ended up moving the summer they graduated. And so they began to then live with me permanently. And I was going through a divorce. So, and we were living with my parents, but they journeyed that with me. But their dad had moved out of state. And so he came back, about a year later, but they've never lived with him again. And so, no, they honored us both. And it's just, here's an example. Like this week, my father, my boy's dad is a real sports person, and the Lions, Detroit Lions, Michigan, they won the last playoff game, and he really has a bond with the boys with sports. And the boys were here with us on that night, and they have their next playoff game this coming Sunday, which is scheduled for a few hours before they're supposed to go back to their dad's house. And so he messaged me and was like, hey, you already got a playoff game with them. Can they come back this Sunday? And my first reaction is like, no, like it's our parenting time. It's a game. Come on, seriously. That's just me. And so I had to think about it for a few hours, because I knew it could cause conflict. And so then it was like, well, duh, just ask what they want to do. Because do I really care? If they're home watching it with me, so then it was just like, boys, do you guys want to go to dad's house, or do you want to watch it here? What would you like to do? And they were like, well, what if we went there at like halftime? And I'm like, perfect. So I texted dad, I'm like, hey, how about if I bring him home at halftime? And he was like, awesome. Thank you so much. He's like, I literally have tears in my eyes. Like, it's just like, it had never occurred to me to like, what do they want? And so when you say you're really surprised that I was willing to talk to the boy, they were 11, 12, they were getting to that point where it was like, well, what do you want? Like, you can tell me, I'm your mom. Like, what do you want? Be honest, So that's where I'm like, I get like the younger years where you're like, they don't know what they want, or maybe someone can, but just ask them, because they can tell you what they want. And if they don't feel comfortable with it, then they'll tell you. And if they want it really bad, then they'll tell you, and listen to their hearts and let them be honest with you, because that's what a mom should do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, it's not about me winning. It's not about me being right or me being in control. It's what do they want? And unless it's do they want to go, drink or, hang out with, kids they shouldn't be, like, ideally that would be a co-parenting. We need to come together. I mean, we do this on when they should be able to have a phone, we talk. I mean, these are things us parents need to be united on. And if the kids can see that you're divided over a million things, it's so sad for them. They need to see that you honor their dad. I mean, I will not let my boys talk bad about their dad in front of me. They're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. If they want to be mad because dad won't let them have a certain app, then I'm going to say, well, they mean what's best for you, honey. They love you. And we don't want you to have that app either. So yeah, it's important to them. You know, it's important to the kids to see a united parent, even if you're not married. And that, Scarlett, like when we divorced, I mourned. Like I did not want to divorce. We had a godly marriage, even though we had messed up. We had a godly marriage, and it was a covenant marriage, and we knew the Lord. And so we were walking through, divorce, and it was painful. And so I wore my wedding ring. I did not want to face that we were divorcing, and I just begged God to let me honor Him even through divorce. And I meant not just until we were divorced, but I meant until He dies. Mm-hmm. Like that's a covenant that I have with the Lord, to honor Him for who He is and who He is to my children too, and I want to honor Him, and we can still do that. You can still honor them, even though they're not your spouse and you're married to somebody else. You can still we should honor brothers and sisters in Christ, right? In general, all people.
Well, I've never thought of it that way as far as having that covenant and still honoring that position that they hold, which some of these things, like you had the whole like aha moment, we'll let them have a voice, ask them, what do they want? And some of these things, it's like, we don't know what we don't know kind of thing, or we don't think about it, or we let our feelings take control instead of choosing a certain thing. And so I'm going to have to sit on that for a little bit with the whole honoring even when you're not married, because I mean, it makes complete sense. So one last thing before we wrap up that I wanted to point out, because I do have people that reach out after they hear certain episodes, or like I said, with that reel that ended up going viral with the kids leaving, and they'll reach out, what do I do? This is what they're asking, and they want to do this. And for some reason, it is such a tendency to think if we let them go, we're giving up on them, or if we let them go, they're going to not want to have a relationship with us anymore. And it feels like the more we allow and we release control, that things are going to spiral and be worse. But I love your story, because you, from the beginning, instead of holding on tight like I did and refusing until God finally had to like get a hold of me, you released that control to the kids to make some decisions for themselves. And because of that, it made the relationship better and stronger, even to the point, what I've seen over and over in situations now with my life and other people's stories as well, when you are more open and accepting, a lot of times it ends up where they are right back in your house. They are right back with you, more time, because if it is an unhealthy situation on the other side, and they try it out, they experience, and it's not what they think, and they become more appreciative of what you're doing in your home. And if it is a completely healthy situation, then they get to experience the love of both parents. And we know, like, the mental health and the success of our children has a big impact on the relationship they have with their parents, specifically their biological parents. So if they can have both parents speaking into their lives, and then have step parents, bonus parents on top of that as an extra speaking into their lives as well, it makes it that much stronger. But they desire so much to have relationship with their both biological parents. There may come a time in their life where they have to decide, okay, this isn't healthy, it's not good for me. But they do see that the truth does come out. It is revealed to them eventually, if that's the other parent's choice to make choices that does not honor and respect their children in that way as well. So yeah. I appreciate you sharing all of that, Jen. And we are going to be recording, BFAM, we're going to be recording another episode here in just a minute, coming out the following week, talking about the Sabbath, because Jen wrote a blog post about that, and it's something that I've been trying to figure out what that looks like, to do Sabbath in the century that we live in now. Like, what is it supposed to look like, and how do we enjoy that? So you're going to be hearing more from her. But before we wrap up today, I've been asking all of our guests, Jen, what is something that your family loves to do? I think I know the answer, but I could be wrong. What do y'all love to do? What do y'all enjoy doing the most as a family?
Oh, probably just being home on the farm. We're very busy. The kids are in a lot of sports and going to and fro, So when we get home and we're all home for one night, it's like, we can just enjoy being together and just be out on the property, with the animals or working on the garden. So I would say that's what we enjoy doing together, is just being home, which is kind of crazy because it's not an activity, but for a blended family, it is, because you're not always together. So for us, being together and being home is what we enjoy.
I love that. And being outdoors too is so therapeutic and healing. And also, like I said, when you are involved in there in sports, being home is a treasured thing. We were just talking with the kids, and they were like, we were talking about cleaning house, and the kids were like, yeah, you would make us clean every Saturday. And I'm like, what world were you living in? We were not at home on Saturdays. We were on the soccer field or the
Right.
basketball court on a Saturday. So I would treasure the times that we would be able to sleep in or watch cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons. But it was so rare that happened because we were gone all the time. So I definitely can relate to that. So where can our community find you? And how can they get involved in this 1 million project?
Oh, yeah. So I blog just not very regularly, but you can follow me on my website, which is Jen Debrot, just my name.com. And I do post a lot of things about our hobby farm there and ministry stuff too. And the 1M project is 1mproject.org. You can follow along. We are on all the socials under that same name, and you can join some of our classes online if you're not from Michigan like we are. So yeah, you can jump on there and see what we're up to.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for just sharing your journey with us today. I know that for so many moms that are listening right now, and I target the moms because I think the moms have the heart, usually have more custody and have a hard time of understanding that letting go and sharing the custody, the peace that comes over when you realize that there isn't the shame attached to it, and that it's okay to share custody, and doesn't mean that you're less than because of that. And I think when I had a mentor tell me it's okay, it freed me so much to be able to, because I held on so tight. So I hope if you're listening to this today, that you're able to hear this and accept it as not a horrible thing. It can be a positive thing. It's a good thing for your family to be able to share that time like that. So, and just thank you for trusting us and sharing your story here in this place. And I always pray that it is a safe place. And when I pray over the podcast, that it won't be heard by anybody that would stir up any trouble in any kind of way, but that it would bring help and healing and hope to those that are listening. So I appreciate that. And I can't wait to record this next one with you over the Sabbath. So anyone listening today, just know to be looking and anticipating the following week when we talk about that and what is Sabbath and what that looks like for us in this modern world. And until then, guys, remember to enjoy your blended family. Bye.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has been a blessing and encouraged your family journey.
Make sure you stay connected with us and join our weekly Blended Family newsletter. We send an email out every Friday morning full of support and encouragement.
And when you join, we also want to give you a free gift. So go get yours today. The link is in the show notes below.
Have an amazing day. Remember to enjoy the journey with your blended family, and we'll see you on the next episode.